hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another video. I haven't been to film for quite a while, but I just haven't really had the energy. So I've done my 25 worst books of 2025, my 25 most honorable mentionable books of 2025, and then my 25, but it was actually 19 I think, fine books of 2025. Now I'm doing my 25, but it's actually 28 best books of 2025. I hope it's not going to be too long, but sometimes I can just like keep rambling on these books, especially with like ones I definitely enjoyed a lot, and I just want to like tell you all about them and the stories and why I love them, and maybe like why it didn't meet the full 5. But let's just see how it goes. Okay, also it's like such a horrible, miserable day today. I thought I was gonna be able to do it with like natural lighting, but like when I started filming it was like blurry all here, so I put my ring light on again. But anyway, without further ado, number 28 is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk, translated from Polish by Antonia Lloyd-Jones. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This is a 4.25 star. Same for the next ones until I get to the next category. Yeah, it's following this old sort of woman in this like remote part of village in Poland, and then these sort of like her neighbor and then other sort of like hunters and sort of like bad people and stuff start being found dead, and people, and she's thinking like, I think it's the animals getting their revenge, and she is there to be like a voice for these voiceless victims, and just sort of like standing up to those in power and those that have, you know, the money and stuff. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it, to be honest. I didn't particularly love every aspect because there's a little bit of hypocrisy in my personal mind of when I was reading the book, in something that like she does or partakes in. But overall, I would really recommend it. Definitely gonna check out the author again. And let's go on to number 27, and that is the first of 3 that are on this list by Edouard Dewey. I really enjoyed his books this year, and I can't wait to read more in 2026. I've put one of him on my 26 list, and a new one that comes out in February, I believe, which I badly want to get as well. But this is History of Violence, translated from the French by Lauren Stein. It's quite unique and a very complex, layered way of telling his story about the night of Christmas Eve in 2012, when he met a man on the street and went up together, did some things, and then later in the night, coming into Christmas Day, the other man, Redder, rapes him and sort of like assaults him with a knife or a gun. I think a gun, yeah. It says that he's going to kill him, and then this is the aftermath of him telling his story of this event. Some is through his own, you know, eyes, and you know, telling sort of his friends and stuff, and going to sort of like the hospital and the police department, and sort of the casual and, well, not so casual racism prevalent within the French police system. Some of the judgment, in a way, of the medical professionals, but also a lot of the book is him like silently overhearing his sister telling the story to her husband, whilst they're in different rooms, and in sort of like the brackets he's like making corrections or adding more to the story. And yeah, I definitely try to do so much with the book. Really like difficult to read some parts, but definitely worth your while. And I'm gonna be reading more Louis in the future. Sorry, I think this is a little bit tilted, yeah, because I keep getting a little line where it's like broken. I'm like, I don't want to keep saying that. Anyways, number 26 is Elena Knows by Claudia Pinheiro. It is translated from Spanish by Francis Riddle. This is very sad. It's very like heartbreaking and emotional book, but so worth a read. It's following Elena, and she's going on a journey to try and find this woman that she thinks can help her to challenge the outcome of the police's like investigation that her daughter died by suicide, where she doesn't think this was the case. She has very advanced Parkinson's, struggles of trying to make her brain and body work in synchronization. And through the book also she explores like quite a tumultuous relationship she had with her daughter, not really seeing eye to eye on things, and sort of like the deterioration of her health from this condition, and also sort of like touches on sort of like the place of women in Argentina and the different attitudes to abortion. But yeah, honestly, it does try to do so much. It's one of my 25 or 2025 books. I did really enjoy it. I would so recommend it. Definitely checking out the author again. Then number 25, the proper start of this video, is My Favourite by Sarah Jolian Fadel. This is translated from French by Holly James. This was the Swiss entry for My Book Is Euros, and this one was the Polish entry. If anyone wanted to go back and watch some of those videos, I really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed this book. It's quite sad, but it's very sort of moving and important. It's telling the story of the main character, Jean, and it starts with her like as a child, and she's very sort of abusive household where the father like nearly every day abuses her mother and the children as well, and she gets quite badly hurt one day, and the doctor comes around and she says outright to the doctor, "My father did this, do something." And the doctor just sort of like bats an eyelid and just like, "Oh, like it's all okay." She, in her mind, she's like, "Okay, I can't rely on people, specifically men, to, you know, help me or get me out of certain situations. I have to do everything myself now." And then it follows her when she goes to Lausanne, I believe, and on like the like, what's the word, like the shores of Lake Geneva, swimming in it and sort of finally having a bit of peace. But a lot of the book is about different sort of like relationships she's had, and sort of how, because she has such a tumultuous childhood and not a good sort of like foundation for her going on into adulthood, it still, you know, impacts her, and try to sort of come to terms with this trauma and move from it, but the difficulty she has with doing so. But yeah, it's like set in 1970s Switzerland, and it also talks about, I guess, another way, sort of like some of the classism within the society, because she's from quite an impoverished area in the mountains, but whilst being there, there's all these like rich people from the cities that come and do all skiing and stuff, and she's like, well, you're living not the true life of people that live there, it's just sort of like your fantasy. So yeah, honestly, I think it does do so much, and I did really enjoy this book. It was so recommend it. It was quite surprising, to be honest. Then number 24 is Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. This was my final 4.25 star. I did really enjoy this. I think it is maybe a little bit too long, but it definitely does a lot, and it definitely keeps you like very intrigued throughout the whole book. This is following Jet, and on Halloween night she gets hit over the head, and then a few days later she like awakens. She's like, "Oh, everything's fine, like I survived, yay." But she finds out that there's this sort of like fractured bit of bone, I think, like at the base of her skull, and in 7 days it's gonna like clip or something, and she's gonna have a brain aneurysm and die. And throughout her whole life she's always sort of like put things off and be like, "Oh, there'll be another day, I will do it then, I'll do it later." But finally she says, "No, I will find out my murderer and get them, you know, just like to commit justice or whatever, find them out." And it's basically just her doing that, with the help of her childhood friend Billy, who was just so freaking cute. Oh my god, I loved Billy so much. That man, I loved him so much. Yeah, and it was quite emotional. I was actually really getting upset towards the end, because like you although it's like 7 days with her, you definitely like learn about her and sort of like other things in the town and stuff, and it really keeps you on the edge. But yeah, also like her humor maybe isn't for everybody, because she sort of tries to make a lot of jokes about these sort of like serious things, but then at the same time you have to be like, she's literally gonna die in 7 days, like she's using it as all like a mechanism to not cry the whole time, I guess, like what other, like some people might do. But yeah, I have read 2 Holly Jacksons before in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, so I definitely want to finish that and then read some of her standalones as well. There's also her adult debut, and I thought it was really good for that. It does read on the borders of YA and like new adult. Number 23 is actually the first book I read in 2025, and it is The Five by Haley Rubenhold. I read this audibly. I do actually want to get a physical copy because I think I would like to reread this in a few years. This tells the story of the 5 women that were purported to have been murdered by Jack the Ripper, and it's not about him at all, which I loved. It really refocuses the narrative to these 5 women and their lives, starting from like before their birth up until the moment of their death, and sort of what led them to be in these circumstances that they were murdered in this way. And it just talks about sort of like the place of women in the time, like when was it murdered? I think like 1800s time, and sort of like just the different circumstances and situations that they were put in, mostly because they were women, also because they were poor, because they were like mothers as well, and different, you know, issues that they faced. And it's very upsetting. It's so well researched. She really like puts you like in the room with them, and it does read kind of a bit like fiction at times because of how like detailed it is. And I mean, it is non-fiction because like it does state like dates and things like that, but it definitely goes beyond that, I would say. And overall I thought it was a great book, and I definitely want to read her latest release, Story of a Murder, about like the Crippen case. So I'd like to pick that up. I think when it comes in as a paperback though, because it's still in hardback and it's like £25, so I'm like, oh no thank you, or I'll try and find a pre-owned one. These are all my 4.5s, by the way, until I tell you they're not. And number 22 is 300,000 Kisses by Sean Hewitt, and artwork by Luke Edward Hall. And I really enjoyed this book. I knew what I was saying, because it's just true for all of them. This is let me just give you a little example, so it's a bit easier to find an example, you know. Is The Invincible General by Plutarch, in their book or something called Moralia, and then basically this section here where it's like narrower is the author Sean Hewitt basically just telling a bit about what's going on in the piece that will follow, or like the context of it, was how it was written, so about the author or things like that, basically giving you a bit of like context to it. And then what follows is his translation of the original sort of ancient text. There you go. And then also follows is some are double page spread, some are single, some are like I showed you before, that like just like a little bit there. But it's artwork by Luke Edward Hall that relates to the story being told, and it's about well, here, tales of queer love from the ancient world, and just different stories and different like facets of queer life. And although we're putting this modern term of queer or gay or lesbian or trans on these ancient people that didn't use these terms, that is acknowledged. And also the book does acknowledge some of the morally, by our terms, wrong parts of some of this type of love. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very easy to get through. I really liked the way the translations were written, like that I could understand. I think maybe the ratio of sort of queer male to other identities within the queer community isn't that good, but then I guess there's maybe less found or remembered stories of female or trans experiences, and also maybe a little bit of a repetitive nature of this sort of like difference between higher love and lower love. But overall I thought it was really good, so recommend it. Definitely check out the author again, and maybe some of the books that Luke Edward Hall illustrates, because I did like them. I didn't love that. I thought they may be a little bit simply, but still it was a nice addition, and they definitely added to it, other than some books that, like, when they add illustration, I was like, it doesn't really need it. But yeah. Then number 21 is Assembly by Natasha Brown. This is my English entry for the Bookish Euros. Very short but very impactful. It follows a woman, I think she's unnamed, I believe so, who is a black British woman that sort of did all the right things, got good grades, went to Oxbridge, has a good job, has like a boyfriend, I think, yeah. But she's always being sort of questioned in a way, maybe not always outright. She isn't worthy of having these things, and it talks about the inherent racism and classism still so prevalent within British society, and the difference between, you know, having wealth and having sort of just money, I guess, and thinking like, is this what I just want anymore? Like, is it worth it? And to try and, like, she answers herself, but also answers the author, what can we do to change to stop it being this way anymore? But yeah, I think maybe a little bit more plot and a bit more of a narrative to follow would have been a bit beneficial, a bit longer. But overall, I thought it was very, like, impactful, and would so recommend it. I'd say well worth a read. Then number 20 is a story I have read before, but not in this format. Is The Handmaid's Tale, the graphic novel by Margaret Atwood, with the art and adaptation by Renee Nout. Yeah, I did really enjoy this. Let me just sort of show you. So it's just like a little one of the artwork, and like the power of the red is so strong, and it really, like, catches your eye every time you see it on the page. Like another example. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It hits all the plot points of the book. It's well adapted. I didn't love it as much as the original story, just because I feel like there's such a power in sort of, you know, reading the story, I guess. But yeah, I don't really have that much else to say. The plot of Handmaid's Tale is a woman in this sort of like dystopia, future America. You know, it has lessons for today. America, do something, like, honestly, I don't talk about that. It stresses me out. Obviously, I'm not living there, but like, I just can't. Like, it actually makes me feel stressed. But anyway, learn from this story and don't let it happen, please. But yeah, just like dystopia where women had children or were queer, are these sort of like handmaids for like these rich people that can't get pregnant anymore, and just about like a struggle with it and sort of going throughout this horrible existence. And yeah, I thought it was amazing. Definitely read the book, that one or the original, or listen to your audiobook as well. So yeah. Then number 19 is one that I think I've lost. Like, I don't know where it is at all. I remember I read it when I was at university in Birmingham, and I definitely remember packing it in my suitcase, but when I went to check, it weren't in there, so I was like, where's it gone? But anyway, it is the book, Nova Scotia House by Charlie Porter. This is following, it's either Jerry or Johnny, I can't remember which one is telling the story, but he's telling of like when it's like modern day, when he's sort of like, I don't know, 50 or something, back in the like 80s 90s, I want to say, when he moved to London, and he met this older man that was either Jerry or Johnny, I think Jerry, but it's just sort of about like community and sort of the queer lives at that time, and sort of like being hidden in a way. The older man also has AIDS, and it follows his descent to his death, which we learn at the start of the book that he did die, and sort of that process and the main character's sort of grief with losing him and finding out that he is going to be older than he ever was, which is really upsetting, and also talks about sort of like the modern queer community and nature, and maybe we've lost some of this magic of being on the outside, and having a fight, and also delves into sort of like some AIDS activism. Yeah, I thought it was so worth a read. I did enjoy it. I didn't particularly love the writing style. I found it a little bit confused, and I think it's what the author intended to do with the book. But I just found it a little hard to follow, and it sort of goes over things a bit and sort of goes forward and goes back and stuff. But yeah, overall, definitely gonna check out the author again. And it was good. It's number 18 is Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fetto. I love this. It was so wacky and weird. It's basically following the main character, Winifred Notty, who goes to be the governess of this sort of like rich family in sort of 1800s England. And she is a weirdo. She is so strange, but like I didn't like her, but I loved her. That makes sense. And it just sort of like her descent into like lunacy, kind of. But it also does talk about like the way the two children, a boy and a girl, are being brought up, and sort of the different, you know, expectations or limitations put on the boy and the girl at the time, and how the main character, like, she's very forward and out there and sort of like does what she wants and says what she wants, which isn't the thing that makes her weird. It just makes her sort of a strong, good character and how like she should be, but it's different to how women were meant to be. But then again, add on to that the weirdness and the lunacy and the descent into chaos. Yeah, it was so entertaining, very fast read. And yeah, I will definitely go check out the author again. Yeah, it was great. Then number 17 is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This was one of my 25 or 2025 books. It's just so like imaginative and yeah, and so camp as well. Like it's so camp. Like Henry is so freaking camp. But it's following Dorian Gray, who has this picture painted of him, and then Henry is like one of the friends of the artist. I can't remember the artist's name, sorry. Hallwood, I think, something like that. Says like, don't take your beauty and your youth for granted, because you will not always look like this. And Dorian is like, oh my god, like I hate this picture. Like it shows me at my best. It shows me at my being so handsome and youthful and young and, you know, beautiful, and I'll never look like this ever again. I wish that this picture could age and hold all the sort of badness of my soul, and I will forever stay young. And that comes true. And then it just like follows on from that. It's sort of like a horror book, but it also is quite philosophical and talks about sort of, you know, the soul and vanity, and yeah, a lot of things. I would so recommend it. I wish he could have like published his actual one he wanted to with the more queerness in it, but there's the undertones are there, come on. But yeah, so recommend that. Then another 25 or 2025 books, at number 16 is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. This is her debut, and I'm like, hon, how is this so amazing for a debut? It's following a family in 1940s Ohio, a poor black family living under segregation, and well, I'm not going to say casual because it isn't, it's just straight up racism. And it's all from the perspective of people around her, but never the main character herself, I don't think. I'm not 100% sure. I did find it a little bit confusing, to be honest. But Pecola, who wishes of having blue eyes and blonde hair and white fair skin and, you know, being thought of as pretty, but she thinks that she's ugly because she isn't this. She is a little black girl. And how does society and people around her have forced into her mind that this means that you are lesser than and you are worse and you are ugly, when that is not the case. But yeah, it's really upsetting, it's very emotional, it's such a sad book, but it is important, and it's well done. I didn't love the writing. I found it a little confusing how sort of things are played out, but overall I think the intention did come across and the story I did understand. I think maybe a few characters stories weren't that integral to the main one going on, but overall I would so recommend it. It's like required reading. Yeah, great book, and I would definitely be reading more of Toni Morrison. Then number 15 is Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it's very well plotted, I would say. It's following the story of, I believe they're all unnamed apart from maybe the main character's friend or maybe her husband as well, I'm not too sure. But I always forget. Soldier is the mother, yeah, and Sailor is her little boy. And it follows from about like his, like a few months after his birth, I think, to when he's about like 3 or 4. But within this time frame there's these chapters of exquisitely detailed sections of their lives and these snippets, and about sort of like the tumultuous relationship she has with her child and how like he's like screaming a lot and crying and demanding things, and she is always the one that has to, you know, clean up and be there for her son, and how her husband has sort of benefited from her having a child because he only, like, he's working, he's sort of like growing up in the company, he isn't there for all these bad times, but he comes later when the child is sleeping or being nice and pleasant, and sort of it talks about the expectations and differences between how, I guess, society in a way thinks a mother and a father should, you know, act with their child. And then she also meets up with like I believe it's like a university or like college age friend, and his own family, and sort of their relationship sort of reblossoming again, and not sort of like sexual relationship, just like a friendship. And she asks, is like, can I get back to being the woman I was before I had my child? And yeah, I think it's such a great exploration of motherhood and like the way women are treated or viewed, I guess, in terms of their being a mother. Yeah, so I recommend, definitely gonna check out the author again. I need to stop saying that because that's the truth for every book here. Well, the next one I don't know if I can because there hasn't been any more translations of his works, so please someone get onto that because this was my last one I can read in English because I do not know French, but maybe I should learn just so I can read his whole bibliography. And that is number 14. I said it weird. His Brother by Philippe Besson, translated from French by Frank Wynne. This was difficult to get a hand of. It's also like getting a bit sort of like, it's not a good condition at all. But anyway, this is my third Besson. In the Absence of Men, really enjoyed, 5 stars. Lie with Me, favourite book of the entire my reading. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Honestly, sometimes when I'm doing these videos and I keep talking about different books, my sanity just goes. I'm just like, I don't know where I am anymore. And but this video is like over 30 minutes long. Oh my gosh. Anyway, this is following Lucas and his brother Thomas, who is dying from this sort of like blood condition that sort of baffles the doctors and they don't really like know what's going on. And they're both sort of quite young still, like not that young, but like, I don't know, 30s, maybe 20s, 30s. And they go, the book is, it's a bit confusing to describe. It's like over a summer whilst they're on the Ile de Ré in the southern France, which is the place where they had a childhood like family holiday home. But then also within that, there's sections before that lead up to the start of this summer. That makes sense, of the brother Thomas sort of going to the medical professionals and trying to understand what's going on and learning that, like, he has this terminal illness and he is going to die. And then whilst they're on the island, it's about the 2 brothers like reconnecting and going over sort of parts of their like family bonds and the history and the difficulties they had, but also, you know, them being brothers, and the lead up to his death, and how like it's so, you know, upsetting. You know, he's still quite young, and you know, losing your brother, and how it's, you know, it's like someone that you lived with your whole life. But yeah, so well written, quite complex narrative, and yeah, I would so recommend it if you can get your hands on one. I'm cherishing this for the rest of my life because it was difficult, but yeah. Also, someone please translate some more Beth Song, because I need it now. Then number 13 is The Details by Aya Genberg. This is the Swedish entry. It's translated from Swedish by Kira Josefsson. That won my bookish Euros last year, and this I really enjoyed. It is following a woman who is sort of has this sort of like fever. That I wanted a bit more information on, because I was like, I don't really know what's really going on in the modern context, but anyway. And then she thinks back to 4 people in her life that sort of changed her or impacted her a lot. Some friends, some relationships, other things like that. And it just goes into these details and minutiae of, you know, relationships and families and personhood and identities, and how the people around us really do sort of make us who we are. Yeah, well written. I think maybe a few the paragraphs are quite long and they overrun, but it doesn't like irritate you, it just makes you want to keep reading. And yeah, I don't really have too much else to say. I did really enjoy this book, and I think she has a new book coming out this year, so may check that out. Very slim, but again holds you, and another reason why is I love short books that can, you know, really do a lot with their short page length. And number 12, we have The Lost Part of Billy McQueen by Neil Alexander. I listened to this audibly like in the summertime, I think. I still do really want to get a physical copy because I really enjoyed this book. This is sort of like a dual time frame. There's Billy, who learns that his mother has had a stroke, I believe, back in Northern Ireland. He's living, I think it's like Brighton or Southend somewhere. Recently lost his job, and like things aren't really doing it great, but he goes back to, you know, see her, and because he gets a call from the neighbour, and then he's looking in the sort of wardrobe or something, and finds this tape that was given to him by his sort of like secret boyfriend when he was younger in the 80s. The boy that gave it to him, sorry, I can't remember people's names, basically just disappeared one night, and he's like, what happened to him? And is in sort of like the modern time trying to, you know, go over this past, his lost past, and trying to think like, what happened to the boy I loved? But then also it's back in the 80s, and the references, oh my god, I just love books set in the 80s so much. It's just so on point. The music, the clothes, the like albums, magazine, just like, oh, I just love it. And it's about like his like friendship, and then also with another boy, and sort of like understand that he is gay, and sort of his coming of age, and having this relationship that's like always in secret, and sort of some of the sort of like underground queer community within sort of Northern Ireland at the time, and yeah, and it's basically just us trying to understand what happened to this boy, and yeah, I thought it was great, so well written, really great characters. Maybe some of the plot points I didn't love, but overall would so recommend it. It was a great book. Then number 11 is The End of Eddie by Edouard Louis. This is translated from the French by Michael Lucy. This is sort of like autofiction, well, all of his books are, but this is about his sort of like childhood up until adolescence, and sort of coming from quite an impoverished part of northern rural France, and the sort of the town and stuff, and how it's quite violent in a sense. Also his own queer coming of age and being bullied, and the like things from his parents that like boys must be like this and girls be like that, and how everyone in the town sort of, you know, just grows up to be exactly like their parents were. But that's not him. He doesn't want to work at the factory, he doesn't want to live this life anymore. He wants to strip himself of this sort of small town, quite deprived sort of life that he's living, and wants to, you know, grow out of his social standing that he was brought into, and the journey of this, and sort of about his own family life. And yeah, quite a lot. It's very sad, very moving, not written in a way to sort of so readers sort of like pity him, but it just like, these are the facts and I lived through this, but I try to change it. And the purpose of the title is The End of Eddie, because that was his birth name, Eddie, but he changed it to Edward. And yeah, each chapter sort of like deals with sort of like a facet of his life in a sense, but it does also move on chronologically. Yeah, really great, so recommend it. The book that I put on 26, which is called Change, which is sort of like a follow-up to this, and I believe starts where this one ends, when he's like moved to Amiens, I believe, or possibly Paris, but it like goes on about him trying to like change his life from that point. Then number 10 is the final one that I don't currently have. I mean, I do have it. It's the number 10 is Maurice by E.M. Forster. I do have the book, but this one I listened audibly. Last time I gave it a full 5 stars. This time I gave it 4.5 because I just listened to the audiobook. It is so well narrated by Ben Whishaw. He definitely has a good Edwardian voice. I love his accent so much, Ben Whishaw. The guy that plays Paddington, also like done so many other things as well. But anyway, yeah, it's a reread, so I'm not going to say too much about it. It's only on here because I didn't originally put it on here, but I'm like, it is a 4.5 and it is probably my favourite 4.5 still that I've read. But yeah, read it. Great classic. It feels quite modern, maybe a little bit more dated on the reread. Just sort of like the story arc and just sort of the also the like afterward part of the book was just, I love reading the afterward. And the importance of the book, but yeah, that's what I'm really going to say. Then we go on to number 9, At Certain Points We Touch by Lauren John Joseph. It's my 25 or 2025 books. Oh, it's a dense one. It is a dense book to talk about. There's just so much in here, to be honest. This is my first 4.75 on the list, and again I will tell you when it's no longer 4.75. I thought it was great. It was so good. It could have been a 5-star. It reached the 5-star limit. It just was brought back because maybe a little bit too much graphic-y sex scenes and stuff like that, but overall I think it's an amazing book. It is so well written. It can feel a little bit pretentious and sort of quite wordy and sort of all these long words and stuff, but I think that's just how the author writes. It's not just sort of like them trying to be like, I'm better than you, unlike some books, specifically Not One Day by Anna Greta Despise. Pretentious drivel that was. This has so much substance, does so much. What is the story about? It's from JJ, and it's written kind of in the second person you, as they're talking to Thomas James, who was the person that was kind of basically like their first crush and their first love. And the book starts with them saying, it is now 10 years since we met, 6 years since we last spoke, 4 years since your death. And it's because they saw like the date was Thomas's birthday, which is like the 29th of February, whilst they're in Mexico City, and it's then basically like telling like them about their grief in a sense, but also the tumultuous relationship that the two shared, and going from like London to New York to San Francisco, and yeah, also about like the main characters like queer trans identity and coming to terms with it themselves. and it weaves in all these pieces of like literature and art and music, and so many different things are sort of brought together in the book and very, very well embedded. Yeah, also about sort of like the loss of digital media in a sense as well, and how we can't sort of get things that are online that get lost back again. Yeah, so much, so much. Honestly, like you can write a whole essay about this. You can do like a whole like video essay as well. It's like probably like an hour long, talking about every detail of this book because it's so well done. At number 8 we have the play Prima Facie by Susie Miller. It's a quite short play. It's sort of like just a one-woman play performance, monologue-esque in a sense. And it's in 2 parts. She is this like amazing barrister who sort of like gets basically every case like done or finished or whatever in court. I don't really know the proper terms and other. She works to sort of defend the person being accused, I think, and she is given quite a lot of sexual assault cases and like nitpicks every detail of the sort of the what's the word, like the person accusing their account and stuff, and basically like near enough always lets them get off. And then in the second part, she is herself sexually assaulted, and she's trying to think like, okay, how will someone look at my case? And I don't want to say too much because it obviously is so short and it does do a lot. But it's sort of like a call to arms in this way to try and be like, this system that we're working with specifically for sexual assault cases needs to be changed because it's not the same as another type of crime. Like there are so many differences to this crime and the way we go about trying to prove it. I need to give this a reread. She also has created a whole novel version of the play, the author Susie Miller, which I may try and check out. But yeah, so recommend. And cover is stunning. Also like Jodie Comer is the main like actress that done sort of like the, I believe, the UK like airings of the play. But yeah. Then number 7 so different is Art Hole by Joe Lycett. This is massive. It's like thick, it is so heavy, it's long, but I just loved it. It was so much fun. This man is like, for a better term, a lunatic, but we just love him for it. It's basically artworks that he's done. Here's an example: Eamon Holmes and Ruth Langsford. Is that the right name? Yep. And then here is the piece of artwork he done of them. It's not great, but I love it. And here is this story of how he sort of went about creating the piece. You know, sometimes it's not actually fully about the piece, but it's about just sort of like different facets of British life and stuff. And then there's like footnote things that have like a bit more information, little figure captions as well, of what it is. And the stories are just so like wacky and wild and strange and so humorous. And I really enjoyed it. And there's also these sort of like diary entries, sort of like itineraries of certain famous people. Some also like 4-page spreads of his art and sort of pictures and stuff. And yeah, different like split into different sort of like chapters. I love it. I keep thinking about the section on Elton John, and I was just like, oh my lord, this man is crazy. That is like the content if you want to look. Yeah, why is it so high up? I just loved it. It was so much fun. It's a 4.75, so I don't think it fully like can hold its own against some of my 5-star reads, but for enjoyment, the full 5-star experience, would so recommend it, and definitely read more by him. I did read his book Parsnip Butters, which is like a what on earth was that book? I can't remember. He's just a freak and I love him for it. So yeah, read that book. It was great. Number 6 is Strange Pictures by Yuketsu, translated from Japanese by Jim Ryan. I loved this. It was so good. Oh my god, it was so good. It was so imaginative, so unique, so fun. This is sort of like, I believe it's 4 sort of stories, kind of feel like they're all on their own, but then they all come together in the final one. And they're all based on these sort of like strange pictures basically, and how things like work together. And let me show you. So here's just sort of like example, like we get these pictures here. They are sort of shown maybe a few too many times, but we get a sense of the picture and then how they led to a certain sinister encounter in question. Another one there. And I thought it was just so entertaining, so fast paced, so easy to read, just so well done basically, like so everything. But it was a bit spooky because there's a certain bit when like it's a little bit scary anyway, and I was reading this at night time at like 1-2 a.m. Rain and sort of this tree thing in my window brushing against it, hitting it, and I kept flicking to the author profile picture page thing, and that's what I saw. It's spooky. It's spooky. I loved it. Don't really have too much else to say because obviously I don't want to spoil anything or like say the plot and stuff, but incredible. I loved it. His second one, Strange Houses, I did also read last year. That was on my honorable mentions, I think, because the new one came out this year, Strange Buildings, which I think I'm gonna try and get on the release day as well, like I did Strange Houses, because I just thought it was just so much fun, you know. Then number 5, so we're getting there eventually, is The Betrayal of Thomas True by AJ West. This is a beautiful edition with like his peacock feathers. I loved this. It's following Thomas True, and he moves from Highgate to the city of London. It's in like the 1715, and he goes there to sort of like work with his like, I think it's like uncle or cousin sort of candle making building thing, shop on London Bridge, when it used to be the old London Bridge with all the different merchants and stuff. And then he gets involved with like the Molly House scene, which were like them days sort of like gay bars and clubs and stuff, like where queer people could express themselves fully and like be who they were, away from the horrible like rhetoric towards queer people during the time. And he meets the different Mollys there, and this rat character has been telling the names of Mollys to these different justices that are trying to like condemn people, and also the like Society for the Preservation of Manners or some term like that, which go around like basically beating up the Mollys and killing them. And the Molly guard, Gabriel, has been tasked with trying to find out who the rat is. And Gabriel was like, sort of like a bit hunky, a bit like, I liked him, he was nice. But sort of like, everyone expects Thomas because like he's new in town and stuff. But Gabriel's like, I don't think so. So they sort of try and work together to find out who the rat is. And we follow that journey. But it's also just about like the queer life at the time and sort of the two characters sort of getting to know each other and a little bit more happening as well. And yeah, the setting is incredible. It's so well done and like well researched, and like it has that sort of like grimy, grotty nature, but it's just done amazingly. And I really enjoyed this book. The reason it's not a 5 is I think there's a certain character that we sort of like lose for quite a large portion of the book. I'm like, oh, I kind of want a bit more from them. But yeah, overall incredible book. So recommend. This one was planned to be the best of the year for a long time, because it was really only in the last few months that I sort of read quite a few more good books. But yeah, so recommend. I have his second one. Oh no, his original book. I think it's like The Spirit Engineer, which I need to get to read. But hopefully he comes out with some more books because I love them. Then at number 4, which is my final 4.75 star, is the final Edouard Louis on the list as well. A Woman's Battles and Transformations. This one is translated from French by Tasha Howe. So 3 different translators. This is very short, but amazing. Also, like, look at those margins. This is actually the only one of his so far at time of reading that I have underlined parts of the book and starred stuff, but I do need to go through with his other books and do that. This is so well written. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's like a memoir, but not about himself. Well, it is about himself, but the focus of the book is about his mother. And her sort of life, and how she had sort of like dreams and aspirations of her own when she was younger, sort of I think when this picture was going to be taken, but she fell pregnant quite young, and then afterwards married his father and sort of their life together, and her like loss of freedom, living in this small town, and sort of the life that she led with her family, and then her sort of way to freedom in a sense. The only reason it's not a full 5 is that I think that being the main point of the book is a little bit rushed, or maybe I wanted a bit more explanation of like how she went about this, but also another thing is about how the true relationship between mother and son really emerged and became a good relationship was when he left the town, sort of story and end of Eddie, and them more as adults being together and stuff. But yeah, I don't really want to say too much else to say. I'll have my 3 5-star reads of the year, and at number 3 is Neon Roses by Rachel Dawson. This is my 25/25, same as the other 2, so I need to start reading the ones I put on that list properly, because most of the time I enjoy them. But anyway, I love this. I loved it so much. Oh my god, it was so good. 80s books, 80s setting, 80s music, like the fashion, the like magazines, like the films and all that sort of stuff. I just love. This is following Leonard in the 80s, like 84 time it starts, and she's in sort of like a small miners town in South Wales, and the group Lesbians and Gay Support the Miners come to like give them money that they had collected, because that's sort of the actual history. And I later watched the film Pride, which is one of my favourite films. I love that film. Also, whilst I'm on the topic, she does actually say at the end that she took inspiration from this real event of like the queer community and the miners community sort of working together against sort of the strike and the fascism and all that horrible stuff that was happening to two communities during the 80s. But she didn't want to like brush over the actual important people within the story, but she wanted to create a fictionalized account of a member that was involved with them. But anyway, and then when the group comes to her small town, she sees this woman called June, and she's like, it's kind of nice, she's a bit interesting. And then later she goes to like a gig that was put on in London, and she has her first lesbian encounter, and she comes back to a small town. She's like, you know what, I'm a lesbian, and I want to live as a lesbian now. So she tells with her boyfriend Lloyd, which I think is such a pivotal moment I really loved. And she's like, this isn't me anymore, I think we should break up. And he's like, well, can't you just keep trying? And she says, well, I have been trying, I just didn't know I was. And then she moves to Cardiff, and also explores some experiences within London and Manchester, with June and also some other women within like the lesbian community at the time, and some activism, and just sort of like, you know, being a lesbian at the time. And yeah, I don't want to say else too much about the plot, but I just loved it. I love the characters. I just love the setting, I love the writing. It was just an incredible book. Also, I just loved how sort of like forward and sort of sexual Leonard was, and didn't really let things stop her, which I just thought was amazing. Yeah, definitely need to read more by Dawson if she writes any other books. So worth a read. Then number 2, however, it could be one. They sort of swap. I think they're both exceptional works, and before, like, the past few days when I've been meaning to film this video, and I've been like getting all the books down and stuff, I just like flicking through it, and like every page on here has something to learn from, and it's just written so exquisitely, so important, and one that I had been meaning to read for so long. I don't know why it took me many years to, but thankfully I did, and I just cannot wait to read more in this autobiography series. It is the first part of it. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. I just like, it's just so good. Please read this book. It's essential reading. It's a story of her childhood up into her adolescence, when she moved with her 1 year older brother Bailey to Stamps in Arkansas, to live with her grandma, and it talks of like the black community and sort of the importance of like religion, and the legacy of the slave trade, and still the segregation, and horrible racism that was so prevalent, but just sort of like her family, and then afterwards she goes to stay with her mother for a few time, for a short time in St. Louis, and she's raped by her mother's sort of like partner at the time, and then she goes back to Stamps, and she finds this sort of love of literature with the help of a woman that lives nearby, and how it impacts her later. And after she goes to San Francisco to stay with her mother, during her like later adolescent years, and her growing up. I some parts I didn't wholly love. I think there's maybe a little bit emphasis on religion, but then at the same time that is obviously was so important to her, and her community, and maybe a few attitudes to other races or like nationalities in the book, but then like she learns from it, she like sort of changes. I just think she's such an exceptional, incredible woman. I had previously watched like nearly everything that's online that she has like created, or about her poems and certain readings, and sort of also when she died, her funeral, there was different speakers that sort of spoke about her or her life and things. The one done by Oprah Winfrey was just so good. But yeah, I don't have too much else to say. Like I said, again, it's so well written. Like nearly every page of here has got something underlined. Many also have things starred. Yeah, just about her life, and you know, being, I guess, a young black gal at the time, and how she had a lot of things going against her, but she pulled through and strived to become the incredible woman that she was. Yeah, 100% worth a read. Like, please, I think of any of the books here, that's the one you need to read. But we come to number 1 on the list. This video is so long, sorry guys. And 2023 won the best book of the year with Madonna of Bolton, incredible. 2024 won best book of the year with One Love. 2025 won best book of the year with The Secret Life of Albert Entwistle by Matt Cain. I love this man. I love this man so much. He put something in his books that just like drives me crazy. I love him. I love every single part of his books. The character studies are just so good. They're so real and so fleshed out, and the experiences are just incredible. And this one has such a lovely sense of community and sort of like found family, and it's emotional as well, but it's also humorous and happy, and lovely. It's following the main character Albert Entwistle, who is approaching retirement. He is a post postman, in this small Lancashire town of Toddington. And he understands that, like, okay, when I lose my job because I'm forced into retirement, I'm gonna have nobody with me anymore. I'm just gonna be lonely, and I don't want that, and it's sad. He's so like reserved because he felt shame of this part of himself that was placed on him by his parents in the 70s. And he thinks, okay, maybe I can try and find the boy I once loved. Just start crying. Try and find the boy I loved, and then there's like dual time frames, kind of the present day, with him also meeting with a friend. Well, like, they become friends, Nicole, who's a single mother, and her own experiences in the town, whilst he's on his journey to try and find George again. But then also in the backstory about Albert and George sort of becoming friends, becoming boyfriends, going to the moors to sing and dance together and finding solace there, and sort of sharing little notes and stuff. And it's just, oh, it's so good. It's so good. But also like sad as well, because of like how things ended at that time, and like the place of the queer life and stuff. Yeah, and also at the end of the book he does these little interviews with queer men that grew up in the 70s and 80s, and sort of about how we should continue to remember the stories that they lived and their lives and the hardships they endured, so we can like live our lives now. Yeah, I thought it was an incredible book. Need to read more by him. But he has well, I mean, he does actually have two like older books before he released it, Dawn of Bolton, which I probably should get and read. But yeah, incredible, worthy best book of the year. But I mean, this is exceptional as well. Like, they're both top-notch books. I hope you enjoyed this video. It is so long, I'm so sorry, but I just can't talk quickly, can I? Or shortly. Anyways, stay tuned because my book awards is going to be coming soon. That's my next video I need to sort of plan and film. Watch the other ones about the other books if you haven't already this year. And yeah, have a nice morning, night, wherever you are in the world. I shall be seeing you very, very soon. Bye.